Hello amazing leaders, and welcome to day 68 of the Amazing 90-Day Challenge. Today's topic is narrow your focus. As amazing leaders, I think it's our responsibility to help everyone in our company focus on simple, clear objectives. I've got some tips of how I think we should do that, but I'm really keen to hear if you've got any other comments and suggestions how you do that, then please leave them in any of the formats that you're watching or listening to this on. So obviously there's the Amazing Leaders podcast that you'll be able to find on iTunes and Spotify and any of the other podcast subscription sites. There's Facebook under Amazing Leaders, Instagram and YouTube as well, all under the Amazing Leaders brand. So leave some comments in how you help your organization, your company, your family, even yourself focus on things better. So my first tip, and maybe this is one of the hardest actually, but the first thing is to keep things simple. Often we overcomplicate what we try and do, or we try and say and share with other people. So you need to spend some time on this. There was a great phrase that somebody once said, I think it was Winston Churchill. He said, if I'd had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. And it's a kind of a bit of an oxymoron, but it's an interesting way of looking at things. And I think that's really true, that if we spend just a little bit more time up front of being able to tell people what we want, what our message is, how we want them to be a part of that, then that's really going to help you and everyone around you to narrow that focus down by keeping things as simple as possible. If you can say something in 3 words rather than 3 sentences, then do that. But often it will take you some time and energy and maybe some brainstorming around how you get those 3 sentences down to 3 words. But the simpler you can keep things, the more people will remember it, the easier it is to define it and understand it and know whether you've done it or not. So that's the first tip that I've got for you. Talking of 3, the next one is keeping a maximum of 3 core priorities for anybody in your organisation and also your organisation as a whole. Your organisation shouldn't have more than 3 core priorities as to what it's trying to do. Any more than that and it becomes really hard to pin down what you're trying to do. So make sure you know and make sure the people around you know what your core priorities are. There may not be 3, but they shouldn't be more than that. And again, how are you communicating that with everybody? If I came into your company and went up to anybody and said, what are the 3 core priorities of your organisation, your company, would everybody know, from anybody in the junior ranks up to the most senior ranks? Would they all know what those 3 core priorities are? Do you need to reevaluate those? Do you need to maybe put them up on posters, or do you need to send a video round or a memo round or something to be able to share those with people and just remind them of what your 3 core priorities are? Whenever you're doing anything like that, just ensure that you've got clarity around everyone's roles, everyone's responsibilities and their deliverables as well. Do they know what they're supposed to be doing? Do you know what you're supposed to be doing, what your role is? Often as leaders, we can kind of take on the responsibility of everything in the company as our responsibility. Now, to a certain level, I agree with that, that's true. But on a day-to-day basis, what is it that only you can do? What do you have clarity around for yourself and then those around you, so that they know what they're trying to deliver? There's certain things that only you can do as the leader of that company that other people can't until they're in that position themselves. So make sure you know what you're doing. Make sure that the people around you know what they're supposed to be doing as well, and also what you're supposed to be doing. And then that keeps going round till everybody again in the organisation knows what they're supposed to be doing. And I'm going to use the example of a cleaner here. A cleaner in an organisation is one of the most important people in the organisation, because without having a clean and safe and germ-free environment, especially nowadays, then you've got some big problems coming up where everybody's going to get ill or sick or just not enjoying coming into a messy environment. A cleaner should really know what they're supposed to be doing, what areas they're supposed to clean, how often they're supposed to clean, what chemicals they're supposed to use or cleaning products, different things like that. And everybody will know, including the person who's doing the job themselves, whether they have cleaned or not in certain areas. And I use that example because it's really easy for people to understand. Can somebody say that about you and your role, or the other leaders in your organisation? Because it's sometimes not as easy to define as that role of a cleaner. So try and get that clarity around what you're doing, what others are doing, so that everyone can understand whether you've done it or not. Another way of doing that is to be able to set appropriate KPIs, key performance indicators, for the current business climate. Now that might change over time, that might change over years, it might be seasonal, so you can't necessarily have a set of KPIs that's the same every single month from January to December. It might be in certain businesses, but others it will fluctuate throughout the years in peaks and troughs for whatever reason. So make sure you're setting appropriate KPIs for yourself, your company, your team members, and my little tip here is always push it a bit further than you might feel comfortable with. Not too much so that it's unachievable, but just a bit more to help people push themselves to raise their own game. Also, do this with your team members as much as possible. If you've got new people in and they don't know your business or your organisation or your sector as well as you do, then still get them involved if you can, but you're going to have to set those and help them to understand why you're setting those at that rate. Again, you can step up KPIs for new people as well, and you can also reduce them down if it's not working for whatever reason. So have some clear and try and do this. Again, it needs to be really obvious whether you've hit your KPIs or not. So try and do that again for yourself and for your team. And then the key is not just to set them and forget about them at the beginning of the year and then review them at the end, but to review them often. Review them as a team, review them one-on-one with people on a regular basis to ensure that you're all on the right path. There's no point setting out amazing KPIs on January the 1st just to review them on the 31st of December and realise that you're way off. Or that you're under even. It doesn't have to be that you missed them. It could have been that you're miles over, and you've got to understand why those metrics and different things are happening. The only way to do that is to review them. So set it up in your calendar as a reoccurring event, however often you want to do it, at least once a month, but it might be more frequently than that as well. Get your team to be able to review them and report back to you, maybe during their one-to-ones or whatever else it might be. So review those KPIs so that you all know that you're all on the right path, or if you're not and you're off the path for some reason, then you can catch it sooner rather than later. And the last tip that I want to share with you, and this is something that a lot of leaders and potentially managers and bosses don't do. I want you as an amazing leader to tell people what you're focusing on. Tell them what your KPIs are, what your targets are, so that they know that you're doing the same thing as them, that you're holding yourself accountable to them and to the company as well. At the end of the day, no matter whose company it is, you still work for that company, whether you own it or whether you're just a figurehead for it, whatever else it might be. You still work for that company. And it's important that you lead by example as much as possible. And this is a great way to do that, to help everybody understand what you're focusing on, so that then you can lead by example in what you're doing and setting your KPIs, and even get others to help you set your KPIs so that you know what that feels like, not always doing it the other way around. So I hope that's helpful. I hope you'll have an amazing day, and remember, why be average when you can be amazing?